You're listening to the Sass Says podcast. I'm your host, Christy Rocha, also known as Sass. I identify as a woman, a wife, and a mother. That should tell you a lot already. And over the last few years, I've learned the value of talk therapy. I have seen how my inner work not only enhances my own well-being, but also my marriage, my parenting, my relationships. And in fact, you wouldn't be hearing this right now if it weren't for the work I've done. My mission is to debunk the misconceptions and stigmas around what therapy is and who it's for. Let's normalize working on our mental health and seeking help when needed. We've all heard of self-care, self-help, and self-love, but do you often wonder how to actually make it all happen? I do. You'll hear strategy-based conversations with professionals, as well as inspiring and validating stories from women who are just like you and me. Think of this podcast as the weekly therapy sessions you didn't know you needed, with a dash of sass, a lot of vulnerability, and me, relentlessly asking, but how? Hello. All right. Today, my guest is Sarah Bilger, a certified postpartum nutritional coach, mechanical engineer, and host of the Entering Motherhood podcast. Sarah is also a mom of two, and you will from time to time hear her cute little baby boy make some newborn noises throughout our conversation. It was so distracting in the best way possible. He is too cute, but also just so amazing for me to see her handling so much at one time. She's breastfeeding, she's bouncing him, all while being interviewed. So anyway, today we get deep into Sarah's why for starting her podcast and her platform. We talk about her traumatic birth experience and her postpartum mental health journey, including her experience with therapy. We talk about going back to work after giving birth and everything she wants new moms to know. So as always, stay tuned after. Here's Sarah. Hey, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here. It's so good to see you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Long time no see. We just were here
Right?
a couple days ago doing the reverse interview, and I'm so excited to just get into your story this time. I know. It sounded a little more menacing than I wanted it to.
No, I love this though. I love conversations. I love, meeting people and doing this. So I'm excited.
Right. Well, let's just start right away with how I came to find you as your podcast, Entering Motherhood. Tell me a little bit about how that started and your why for doing it.
Yeah. So let's see. How did it start? Basically, I had prepped for the birth of my daughter. She was born in 2019, and I felt so prepared and all that was going great. And then we just continued to check off the list of things to do to prepare to be a parent. And then the birth came and went and happened, and I ended up with an unplanned cesarean, which was not the plan at all. I wanted to go completely natural, unmedicated, have this beautiful birth, and what I expected to happen was just basically, I'm going to go into it, baby's going to come out, and it's all going to be okay. And then after that, because of the cesarean and because it had not gone the way that I had imagined, I saw myself dealing with a lot of issues. And about 6 months postpartum, I would describe it to be almost PTSD. I was reliving the birth, not understanding why it had happened, having a hard time still processing it. And this was 6 months later, and I kind of just found myself wondering, why had it happened? What was this? What is life? And my daughter had gone into daycare 9 weeks postpartum. So she was only 9 weeks old. I was thrown back into working in an office, separated from her, and I just started living day to day, just making it through. then I just sort of, you know, was like, this can't be it. This can't be how we're supposed to be living life. This can't be how motherhood is supposed to be. I shouldn't be waking up, going to work, getting my daughter, going home, having dinner, going to bed, waking up, going to work, like just living that same, right. You know, that Groundhog Day feeling, that same life, nothing's changing. This is just how it is. And when I would go to talk to people, they were just kind of, yeah, that's motherhood. That's how it's supposed to be. We're just, you know, living for the weekend or making it until it's not as hard. This is just a season. I just kept on hearing these things of we're just supposed to deal with it almost. So I had decided to really just start digging into finding out why this was happening, why I was feeling this way, what was going on, and just let my curiosity run. And in having all of these conversations, I felt like I needed to share them. I needed to tell other moms, there's more information out here. There's more resources out here. There's more things that we can be doing to make it not feel so stuck. And so in having all these conversations and wanting to share it, I came across the idea of starting a podcast. And I just asked people, hey, can we record a conversation and talk about this topic and share it with other people? And the more I kind of reached out to people, the more people wanted to talk about it, and the more people wanted to share their story, and the more people wanted to listen and understand and hear and get these conversations going. So I really found myself in a spot of this is needed and I enjoy it. So let's do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm taking notes like crazy. The first thing I made a note of was, you know, you sharing that you and your partner kind of checking off all the boxes as far as preparing for motherhood and preparing for baby. And one thing I think that we get so wrong in this culture is that it feels to me that everything about preparing for baby, everything that you do during pregnancy is for baby only. There is very little discussion, very little preparation for mom. And I would even say for dad too, right? But that's not who my show's for. So, but there's so little preparation for us moms and what to expect. And I feel like then kind of skipping over a bunch of my notes where you're sharing about hearing over and over, this is a season, just deal. It's like, we'd actually be able to much better deal if we were prepared properly. You know, you go into this experience mostly blind, or you go into the experience hearing stories from maybe your mom or your grandmother where life was entirely different. I mean, mothering is mothering to a certain extent, but within, you know, the times, things change, right? Because mostly what you hear from them is, well, we didn't have baby monitors and we didn't have, you know, and thankfully for us, it is more acceptable for us to talk about how motherhood impacts us than it was for previous generations. But I don't know. And I struggle with this a lot. And I ask my guests a lot too, because I think it's really hard to reach potential mothers before they're a mother. You know, it's like when it's not your reality, why do you care? And so it's like, what do we do? Like, how do we prepare expecting moms or women who are even just trying to get pregnant and aren't pregnant yet? Because I think there's value in having, I don't know, like, is someone who's not pregnant yet going to listen to this? I don't know, but I hope so, you know? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think when we enter motherhood, we get a different sense of reality almost. Our total perspective shifts. And I think that's something that we are not able to understand until it happens. And I think that's very common of a lot of transitions that go on in our life. You're thinking, oh, that's never going to happen to me. I never thought I was going to have a cesarean. That thought never crossed my mind. In all the books that I read preparing for birth, I skipped over those sections.
Right.
I was like, I'm not going to have that happen. And then I found myself in that position where I had to have a cesarean. And so I think that's what really kind of caused me to go through such a shift of how did this happen and how has this changed my life more rapidly than if I would have just had the birth that I quote unquote planned for and everything turned out okay and I just kind of went through the motions. I don't think I would have been so strongly for discovering what this transition is. I don't think I would have had so much drive and passion to really figure out what is this transition? What is happening as we enter motherhood? What is worth talking about? And like you said, like how do we get those mothers to listen before they're a mother? And I think if you're even thinking about being a mother or considering it, or that's something that is in your future, you can always start preparing to think about those thoughts.
Especially now with people like you and me out here talking about it till we're blue in the face, right? Like there's so many resources and social media pages that are offering so many great, blogs, all of that is available to you. Can you go back and share a little bit for hopefully potential, moms who are listening, and even for me, I had 2 vaginal deliveries, and can you talk a little about how and why the unplanned cesarean impacted you so much for someone who doesn't have any frame of reference for that experience?
Yeah. Mostly it was so impactful because it was not something I had planned for. Like I said, I wanted to go. I didn't even want an epidural. I was so set on I'm going to be able to power through this and it's all going to be okay. And I'm so strong and I've prepared so much that this is going to be quote unquote easy. I did not think that birth and labor was going to be as intensive and required so much mental preparation as well. I thought, I'll do all the things, I'll prep my body, I'll, take a class, things like that. But there was a lot that was sort of built up, I think, mentally that caused me to not be able to fully relax. There was a lot of things. First of all, my water broke before I even started to feel a single contraction, which was something that they say,
right,
that never happened.
That's very unusual.
That
right?
never happened. And here I am, my water just broke. I'm standing there not feeling anything, totally confused. Why is this happening? What's going on? And I think it just propelled me into this state of fear. Something must be wrong. Like, what's going on with my body? Why is this not working out the way that I was supposed to? My anxiety was ramping up. I was just so paralyzed in the moment, and birth was continuing to happen. And that struggle between what was physically happening in my body and what was happening in my mind, I think ultimately just caused a huge blockage in what needed to happen.
Yeah. So I just want to clarify what you're saying.
Yeah.
So as far as the unplanned cesarean goes, you believe that your anxiety and your stress around the already sort of unplanned happenings contributed to that final outcome of having the cesarean.
Yes.
That's a big.
Yeah, I definitely think that my mental state stopped me from being able to progress the way that I need it to. And after 24 hours of not being able to get to quote unquote where I need it to be, and my water had broken and all these other factors were starting to occur, it was just kind of suggested to me, hey, we think you need to have a cesarean now. You can continue to go on, but things could progress and get worse. And that could have also been, you know, knowing what I know now, that could have been scare tactics or things like that. They could have been just, you know, it's been too long. We need to get this baby out. It could have just been a lot on their end. But also, I can't go back. I can't change the past. And what happened.
And your baby is healthy and you're healthy and okay.
Right. But it did cause a lot of, like I said, that PTSD. Like 6 months later, I was kind of, you know, people were saying, oh, I'm so sorry that you had to have a cesarean. And, oh, I can't believe that happened to you. We know that you wanted things differently. And right after the fact, I didn't have those thoughts. I was just kind of like, well, my baby's here. We're okay. I made a decision that I felt was best serving all of us. You know, I felt fine with my decision. And then I was conflicted with, should I feel fine? Did I let them persuade me? You know, all these thoughts were really running through my head of the experience.
Yeah. No, that's heartbreaking. Because I think what you're saying is there are experiences like childbirth, and I mean, I don't know, I'd say most emotional experiences, right? Like, the place to start is, how are you feeling? You know, it's okay to ask someone how they're feeling about something before you give your opinion on how you think they're feeling, or worse, how you think they should be feeling. And, you know, I say a lot about, and I think I said it in our show a couple days ago, you know, not understanding that trauma is in the eye of the beholder. And you might have had a healthy baby and a healthy you afterwards, but that experience was traumatic for you. And there are women who put a C-section on a calendar and go in and come out feeling great. And that was their plan, and they did it. And it's not traumatic for them, but that wasn't your experience. Right. And I'm curious, like, throughout the process with either your doctor leading up to the birth, or certainly within the experience of actually being at the hospital, was your doctor or doctors ever like saying, hey, Sarah, expect the unexpected. You want this, but we have to be prepared for anything to happen?
I don't think that conversation was really introduced to me or anything. I think it was just kind of, I do remember at one point, you know, when we were approaching that 24-hour mark, that the doctor had come into me and he had a really, you know, almost heart to heart of, I know this was not your plan. I know this was not something that you wanted, but the way that we're looking at it, like, he really kind of sat with me. And I thought that was really nice. Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people don't
Here I am
get.
jumping your emotions. I'm like, that's nice. You're like not even finishing your sentence. I'm sorry. After what I just said, right? Oh, that's nice. Yeah. You're happy about that, right?
But it was. And I think, you know, in my experience, I feel almost fortunate that it wasn't an emergency cesarean, because I do feel for, like, as much as, you know, I think my experience was not what I wanted, I do feel for the moms who, even to that extreme where it's emergency, all of a sudden, you know, you can go from being perfectly fine to all of a sudden having chest pains or something, and then now you're rushed into the OR and baby's out, and you might have been knocked unconscious, didn't even see them being born. I feel fortunate that I got to experience what I did in the situation. I got to see her come out. I got to choose if I wanted the clear cloth or the you know, the heavy drape and stuff. I got to choose certain aspects.
You had some agency in the process. Yeah.
Right. And I think that
Yeah.
helped.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think you know, I had great doctors. I did with both pregnancies, and I really enjoyed them, and it really, I think now in hindsight, it's just they're not trained properly or enough, right? Like they're experts in what they do, but it's like no one can see me right now, but like my head is in my hands because it's like as a society, or I don't know, as just like a field, a medical field, it's sort of just like completely put to the back burner that this is a huge life-changing medical, emotional, physical event, you know. And it's like, yeah, you might deliver babies every day, but my first time
right.
You know?
And I think it's so hard for someone to go back to that first time experience.
Yes.
Even now, you know, we have our second. My second birth was completely different than my first.
Yeah.
And if my second birth was what my first birth was, again, I would have been oh my gosh, how could you ever like go through with a cesarean? How could you ever, you know, make those decisions? Like, why couldn't you just have your baby? It's not that bad. You know, like so many different things would have been different given different circumstances. Yeah. And I think that's what we have to understand too. And, you know, like you were saying, like with the doctors or professionals, whoever is, you know, delivering your baby, every person is different. Every birth experience is going to be different. Yes, there are certain things that occur that are common. There are certain ways that things happen, but we all experience it differently. We all feel things differently. And like you were saying, like asking somebody, how are they feeling? I think a lot of the times it's assumptions are made. Oh, I was told when I was only 2 centimeters dilated with my first, oh, if you can't handle this, you're never going to get to the end.
Oh my gosh.
2 centimeters.
And what are you doing in that field? Like, get out. Like,
and that also was a mental thing that stopped me. I heard that, and all my progress, all my feeling, I was just so let down. I was like, you're right. Because you're in such a vulnerable state. When you hear comments like that, when you're going through labor, if you're not being lifted up and told that you can do it, if you're told you're never going to be able to get this, like, you are just instantly, oh, you're right.
Yeah. And especially with your first, right? Like, it's all new. It's all scary. It's all intimidating. And you're really, at least for me, I was really looking to the people in the room who have done this before to guide me. And I think, you know, and a lot of it, rightfully so, like, this isn't like a bash on doctors, right? But, you know, we're just sort of taught to just trust. And there's so much good in that. There's so much value in that, right? Like, they do have an expertise in something that I know nothing about, and I would hope, even in like your situation, the fact that you're left with questions is disheartening. But ultimately, we have to move on trusting that the doctors did what they thought was best for you and the suggestions to keep you both healthy and alive.
But yeah, I mean, I think it does come down to, you know, we have to just kind of, if I stayed in the mindset of reliving my trauma and really just kind of beating myself up for making those decisions, or blaming this person, blaming that person, blaming this situation, you know, oh, if it wasn't for this, if it wasn't for that, like, I would be beating myself up constantly. And I think, you know, there's so many situations that can happen. You know, for me, it was that I needed to heal from it. I needed to progress past it. Yes, I'll always remember it. I'll always have those emotions there. I'll always, you know, touch back on it. But I'm able to have a conversation about it without getting emotionally distraught. I'm able to really dig into what happened and ask myself questions about how do I feel about it. And I think that was necessary and that needed to occur. I needed to, work through it, but I'm not letting it determine how I feel moving forward.
And I want to get into, and we will get into all of that healing. But I recalled my train of thought, and there was a follow-up question for you in it. When I was starting to say that, the first baby, everything's new and terrifying and this and that. And I don't know what your experience was then with your second, but I felt very much like the conversation and the experience being pregnant a second time was entirely different, in that as soon as doctors, nurses, whoever were like, oh, is this your first? No. Oh, then Like, all of these assumptions that I just know, that I don't need hand-holding, that I don't need all of the information, that I should just remember from 2 years ago with pregnancy brain and the sort of the newness and the scariness of everything, to go, I don't remember exactly what happened that first time around. Like, stop assuming that I just, like, got this on lock, Like, and I felt a little, at first I remember feeling, like, kind of blindsided by that and going, like, oh, we're, okay, sure, see you next time. Okay, we're good. And then, like, there were certain points where I had to say to myself, like, if you don't know what they're talking about, you have to ask. If you don't remember this from the first time, you have to ask. And not to mention that 2 pregnancies, 2 births can look like night and day and be entirely different. Did you, or what did you do differently, or whatnot, to prepare for your second go around?
Yeah. My second go around, I mentally prepared myself differently. I felt like that was what I needed to do. I wanted a VBAC, which is a vaginal birth after cesarean. That was something I decided on. I wanted to at least try for a vaginal birth if possible. And that was hard to fight for. I actually ended up switching providers than who I had for my first birth, because I did feel like I was getting some pushback in a way of, okay, sure, we'll try for a vaginal birth. Like, wink, wink. And I just didn't feel supported the way that I felt I needed to be. And I had to, ask those questions, express how I wanted to feel. I really needed to get deep with myself and find a team that was going to be more supportive and aligned with how I wanted to see things go. They even, with the previous provider, they just scheduled a cesarean pretty much. Like, when I had to go through all the finances and things like that, they were like, okay, well, we'll charge you as if you ended up with a cesarean. We'll probably start to schedule the cesarean around 39 weeks. Things like that were kind of just being thrown into conversation. And I needed to continuously say, no, I want to try for a vaginal birth. No, I want to, complete a VBAC. And when I switched providers, it was definitely, I feel like, a good call. It was definitely something that was at least, I don't know how to say it, humored. It was something that was
considered, considered and valued and taken seriously.
Yeah.
Right.
It was definitely,
they heard you. Yeah. All right. And then before, again, I get into your healing, I have to ask you about going back to work at 9 weeks. Like, how did you feel? What were you thinking? How did you even do that?
I think in the moment, I just did it because I felt I had to. You know, what other option did I have? I needed to continue to work, and working looked like being in an office away from my baby. That's what it was. And for me, I made sure that the daycare was as close as possible. It was literally right across the street from my office. And I went over there at lunchtime every single day. So the longest I was ever away from her was about 4 hours. But that was long enough. That was difficult.
9 weeks, that is tough.
Yeah, you're still going through so much. You're still, you know, navigating your new postpartum body, life, everything.
I definitely was still wearing like the diapers, and I'm sure you were still healing at 9 weeks. Like, is he coming up? He's coming up.
He's got a big smile on his face. And he's like, you gonna feed me, mommy?
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, I mean, thinking back on it now, I mean, he's almost 11 weeks. I'm still off of work, and I love it. I couldn't imagine, you know, what that was like looking back, and how I was just able to kind of, you know, get ready every day and put myself through that. And my mind was just on her, constantly thinking, is she being fed? Is she being cared for? Is she crying? Is she okay? You know, you're thinking so many new things that you've never thought before, and you're trying to put yourself into a situation that you used to be fine with.
Yeah. No, it's messed up.
And work is expecting you to just jump back into it and be okay with it. And, you know, they were very aware of things and understanding of, okay, like, you know, let's ease back into things. But I was constantly struggling with thinking of her while trying to work full time.
I can't imagine. I really can't. And so you're on maternity leave now. Is this a different company, a different job, or is it just with the pandemic that you're home and things are different and all of that?
So because of the pandemic, I was put on furlough with the company that I was originally with. And then I reevaluated a lot of stuff, and I said, what do I want in a job? Like, what do I...
Go ahead. You want to take a minute? Go ahead.
But I said, you know, what do I want in a job? What do I want it to look like? And I said, my ideal scenario would be doing what I do now, but working from home. So I can have that flexibility, so I can see my children more often, you know, so I can cook dinner while I'm finishing up some project. You know, I really thought hard about what I wanted that to look like. And I ended up going back with a company I had previously worked for. And because of the pandemic, everything was remote. I could, you know, they were willing to let me come back on full time, everything like it was before, but from home. And I was just thrilled to be able to find something that worked so efficiently. And we ended up having, you know, a nanny at home, and Rosie, my firstborn, she was just right in the other room. If I wanted to walk out the door and see her, there she was. You know, if I wanted to close the door and focus on work, I could do that. And I think I really set myself up in an ideal scenario. And again, you know, with maternity leave, me and my husband had a conversation of, can I take the full 12 weeks? Yeah, we made it work, and we're making it work. And I said that was something that I wanted. That's something that I wanted to prioritize. I wanted to be able to fully invest time to my son for those 12 weeks, and then I'll go back to work.
Are you know? And thank you for sharing about the nanny, because that was going to be my next thing. Like, how did you even do that? But that makes more sense. Only because I tried to I tried to work from home without a nanny, and I tried to do that with my daughter until she was, well, I tried until I just like stopped because I couldn't do it anymore because it just didn't work. It just didn't work. But
yeah.
And so he's 11 weeks. Does he going into daycare? Are you going to have a nanny? Are you just going to be home and try to work and try to do it?
Yeah, so Rosie is in daycare now. When I was pregnant with him, we had decided, it's going to logistically work out better if she's at school. So she's out doing things. And when I can, I go and I pick her up. It's usually, in the later afternoon. And then we come home and we hang out and everything. For him, we're planning on, keeping him by my side and staying here. I figured I don't have to take time out of my day to pump if he's here. I can just, pick him up, feed him, and continue to work on what I need to get done. And we're just going to play it,
see how it goes.
Week by week, month by month. I figure, at some point when he's more mobile and needs more attention and assistance, then we'll probably get help. But that will just be something that we play as time goes on.
I'm witness that you're able to do a lot. Like I could never have just the anxiety of having the baby there while on this call with me. I mean, no one can see you, but you're feeding your baby right now as we're talking, like literally. And I'm in awe of this because that would have stressed me out so much. So power to you. And so I want to now, okay. And thank you for sharing that. I think it's important to have transparency with how we all get this stuff done. You see women on social media and you walk by them on the street and you think, how do they do it? And so I think it's important to share where we have help and how, and just how it all works. So you mentioned it and I said, we're going to go back to it, healing from your postpartum experience, your birth story, all of that. Like, what did healing actually look like? Like, what was your process and how did you get to a point where you can talk about it without breaking down and feeling emotional about it?
Yeah, it was, I say a long process, but I feel like because, like I said, I was on furlough, my daughter was still in daycare and I was home by myself with myself. And I think it was a rapid process because I had the ability to condense it all in a way that I don't think would have been able to happen if I was doing the go to work, go pick her up,
the
make dinner, go to sleep.
Yeah.
Right. I had time to really sit with myself. And then from there, I actually created a process of how I felt I did heal from that and what I did. And, first step is just breathe. Just take time to slow down and give yourself a breath. And I think a lot of the times we can't even get to that point.
Yeah.
We need to just rest. We need to just take a moment for ourselves, even if it's just one single breath. And I think, also moving my body and getting outside, or even just, I love yoga and meditation and allowing my body to flow and move and things like that. I think that's so important and was part of my healing process. And, there's just a bunch of aspects that we might kind of think about, but we don't implement. And I think just giving ourselves grace and understanding that it might look different for all of us, but I do believe it's possible to get to a place where you are healed from it.
Yeah, because as soon as you said breathe, take a breath. Like, I spent a long time like completely underestimating the power and value in doing that. And and I've said this before on the show, and so anyone who listens over and over is going to hear this over and over again, but it almost just seems too simple to possibly work, but all it takes is a few times of trying and seeing it work that you go, oh, okay, this is free and it's accessible anytime I need it. So try it. But yeah.
Right. And that's another thing. Like, try
it. I know.
Try everything. Like, try different things and see if it works for you. And I think there's no shame in starting something and quitting it, just allow yourself to really just experience different things and see if you like it or if you don't like it. And either options are okay.
But, and it's, and I appreciate you saying that, because it sounds simple and it might sound obvious to many, but when you are in the deep throes of sleep deprivation and new motherhood and like we said before, everything is new, everything is intimidating, you're just trying to get through the day and trying to make sure your little human gets through the day. And so, yeah, you need the reminder of try something, do it. Like, there was a point postpartum with my second where, and you would think with my second I would have been like much more on it, but global pandemic didn't really help the situation. My point is that there were days where my husband would come home and just be like, put your sneakers on, go for a walk, go for a run. And I'd be like, no, I have to wash bottles and this and that. And he's like, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, and like, at the time for, the first few seconds or minutes of putting my sneakers on, I was like, who does he think he is? But as soon as I got outside, I was like, oh yeah, I really need this. I need the push and I need the reminder, because it's hard to see past the fog of all of the, of the stuff. So anyway, go ahead.
And I was going to say, that's amazing that you had somebody that was able to do that for you.
Easy, and Sarah, easy. He's going to listen to this. But it truly is. I know.
It is. And I mean, sometimes a lot of us don't have that, but it's out there. And I think, we can look for those communities, people, those relationships that can allow us to get there, to have that fire under our butt, or, that moment of, propelling us to do things that we might not want to.
And so another part of your healing that you did share with me on our other recording and in your notes to me was that therapy was part of that as well. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with therapy?
Yeah. So originally,
so cute.
Before
the back of his head is so cute. Sorry, go ahead.
But before becoming a mom, I never went to therapy. I never thought it was for me. I never thought, things were quote unquote bad enough. I don't need therapy. That's not something that makes sense for me. I can just,
keep pushing through. Yeah.
Right. And I finally just had it and was kind of like, you know what? I need to try it. I need to just go and see what it's like, see what's happening. I was crying on our bedroom floor, just not even knowing who I was. Was I Rosie's mom? Was I Sarah? Was I both? It was just so many mixed emotions that I just was completely overwhelmed. And I said, I need to do something. And one of my friends, we were out on a walk hiking, and she was talking about her experience with therapy and just kind of saying, oh yeah, I go to therapy so casually, just, it's something that I do. I really enjoy it. And it was something that I had been considering, thinking of. And when she had said she did it too, it kind of gave me that relief and permission to say, I should go and I should do this, because obviously she's normal and she's
you
going.
relate to her, and she's
right.
Yeah.
So why not? And I have not looked back. I go, as frequently as I want to. I'm very much in control of my sessions and what we discuss. They never force me to really bring up anything that I'm not ready to bring up, but they're there and they're ready for when I do need to have those tough conversations and talk about something. And I appreciate it. And I think it's been so helpful, so beneficial, and something that now I just make a part of my life.
Yeah. And for someone who's listening that has not been to therapy, we know that everybody's experience with it is unique, but what is something you wish that they would know or understand that you could share about your own experience and what you get out of it?
I think what I would have wanted to know beforehand, and what I want people to understand, is you can make it what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find a therapist that fits your style. You can find somebody that you feel comfortable with. You can really allow it to be as flexible as you need it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that I didn't understand originally.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah. There's so many misconceptions. It's not just like lying on the couch and putting your feet up going, how does this make you feel? Right. And you can shop around, right? Like, you can ask a therapist, what is it going to look like to work with you? Do you give homework? Do you do things this way? Because everyone does it a little differently, and you can find someone that is going to align with what you're looking for. And if you don't know what you're looking for, that's even more reason to ask around, right? And kind of shop around.
Yeah. For the place that, I go to, they had bios of all their therapists, a little bit about them. And I was able to, shop around. I was able to kind of like look and pick, like, who do I think I'd want to talk to?
Yeah. All right. And Sarah, before we wrap here, I want to make sure we talk about, you have some good stuff going on. You have the Heal Your Trauma Mama, and you have a festival. Tell me about some of the things you have going on.
Yeah. So the Heal Your Trauma Mama, like I said, was something that I really just put together to process, my own healing and my own experience through, healing through my trauma and my experience and what had occurred there. And it was very helpful for me to place it all together. And I created, there are 5-10-minute mini episodes that you can get straight from the podcast that really break down different ways of how to reshape your mindset and really just dig down to the root of it, of what's going on. And I do, every time there's a month with 30 days, we, have the chance for you to get a workbook and also emails sent to you directly every single day with the clips. So it helps propel you to go through the process and really, push yourself to work through those days. And I mean, you can do it at your own time. It doesn't have to be exactly 30 days in a row. You can take a day, skip a day. And like I said, it's really just your own process, but it's something that allows you to think deeper and help get to a point of understanding more of what happened.
Okay, so I will link this in the show notes, and someone clicks on the link, they're prompted to put their information in, and then from there they're going to get emails from you every day for 30 days.
Yeah, so it occurs in the months that, so right now there's going to be one starting in April. So April is a month with 30, and then I think it's June, September, and November.
Can you sign up at any time, and then they'll just kick in when it starts? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And then your festival. What is the Entering Motherhood Spring Festival about?
Yeah. So that was something that I felt was really needed in our community and was something that I was super excited about. And we're really just bringing the podcast to life and having an in-person experience where you can listen to people speak and have very motivational conversations. And also we're going to do some meditation and workouts. And then there's going to be vendors. Some of them are from past episodes of the podcast, and some of them will be, guests on the podcast. And it's really just an experience where you can come together with other moms and really just let yourself enjoy the day and move your body, listen to good conversations, and do a little bit of shopping, all like out, hopefully on a nice sunny day, but weather permitting, we'll make it work.
May, correct? And
yes,
where is it?
May 15th.
I'm sorry, May 15th?
So, it's called Aaron Farm, and it's in Easley, South Carolina. So anybody that is interested, if you're in the area or if you want to make the trip out, I encourage you to come and experience it, and hopefully it will be something that we do every year.
I love it. And Sarah, is there anything that you want to make sure to reiterate or really drive home for anyone listening today, something to leave them with?
Let's see. I think what I really
his little ears. I can't.
You want to say hi?
It's me again.
Oh
my God, he's so precious. I can't. He's so cute.
You have something to say too. I think mostly what I want people to understand is, we can have these hard moments. Motherhood especially can be difficult, and there's going to be a lot of change that we've never experienced before. But we can get to a point of feeling like it's not just happening to us. And, I think it took me a lot of time, and I'm still learning. I'm still processing. And I think that's something that you do need to understand too. We're always learning. We're supposed to be, and we're always changing. Our past is never going to go away. Our future is always going to be there. But I think there's something special about sitting in the moment and resting in the present and just saying, this is where I am right now. Maybe I'll get somewhere else. And most of the time that does come. I think, the hardest things that we're going through and that we're struggling with have a way of healing themselves. It just takes time. And I think once we're able to understand that, it makes it a little easier for that time to pass.
Yeah, it's true. I do think, though, some of the points you made earlier are a part of that, in that we have to give ourselves the time to slow down. And even, because I think sometimes we get into situations where we don't want what we're in, but we don't even know what we want. And to get there, you have to know. You have to get there, whatever there is for you. You have to know what it is. And chances are, by the time you get quote unquote there, it's going to look entirely different, but you need somewhere to start. You need to, and I think what I'm ultimately hearing myself say is, rather than, dwell in sort of the negativity, or you said it better, it's not happening to us. We have agency. We have, opportunity, and we have resources. I don't know, I'm going back and forth because now I'm hearing this and going, a new mom is going to be like, yeah, that sounds great, but I can't even breathe, and it's just breathe, and then I want to say, just breathe. It's hard. You have to give yourself time, but but it does happen.
Yeah. And I think, asking ourselves, like, what do we want? What is that? That can just be a hard situation in itself. That's where I found myself. What do I want? What do I even want? Like, I know it's not this, but what do I want? And then from there, kind of go into, how will I make it happen? How will I make it my mission to get to a point of what I want is what I have? And then also reminding ourselves, why do I want it? Why is this something that I feel like I need in my life? And if you're playing that comparison game and you want it because somebody else has it, or because you heard that you need it, or anything like that, kind of ditch that want out the window. Your why should be something that is really meaningful to you specifically. And I think remembering that and holding on to it makes those difficult moments a little bit easier.
Yes, I agree. All right. Well, I will refrain from trying to basically rephrase everything you say, but not as eloquently. So anyway, anyone listening can get more of Sarah's wisdom on her podcast. It's called Entering Motherhood. And I will share all of the links to, all of her events and everything she's got going on in the show notes, and where we can find her on social media and all that good stuff. So, Sarah, thank you so much. This was so great. It was so nice to see you and your little man again.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And like I said, these conversations really just light me up. I love doing this. I love, making it a priority to reach out to people, to find new connections, and to really just talk about motherhood and what's going on in our lives. And like you said, like, be transparent about it.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is how deep and impactful of a statement Sarah made about her first experience with childbirth. She talked about how when her plan started going out the window, that her mental state, the way she mentally and emotionally reacted to that news, impacted the outcome of her daughter's birth. And I think that's so big. Like, that's so big. And no one prepares you for that. No one talks to you about that. No one talks to expecting mothers about, hey, if you have a plan and it starts to go off the track, here's how you can help keep your mind, your body, and soul feeling okay so that we can move through the rest of the process. And, I do believe that there is a deep mind-body connection always. And during labor and delivery, I mean, it's in my life, the time that I've felt it the most powerfully. How you breathe, how you feel, what you think, all impact the chain of events. I remember being in labor with my son, no epidural, things were happening so fast, and I was screaming, like dropping F-bombs left and right. And a nurse whispered in my ear, I need you to take the energy you are using to scream and use it to breathe and push. And that changed everything. I got quiet. I went into that place in your mind that you can only access when you really need to, kind of thing, and pushed. And again, like so many things with this podcast that I talk about, it's like I was a person that had been counseled by my mom, my sister-in-law, and to really focus on my breath and be aware of my thoughts. And it's so crazy how fast all of that can go out the window when you're in that moment of delivery. And so it's so important that you're told more than once, and it's so important to have team and support systems around you and medical staff around you reminding you. So I'm so grateful for that nurse. But anyway, birth and trauma around birth is not talked about enough. Labor and delivery are talked about widely, but they're talked about mostly from a medical standpoint. What about an emotional standpoint? What about a mental standpoint? I love that Sarah is bringing this conversation to light. It is so necessary, so important. And I just thank you so much, Sarah. Please be sure to check out all of her resources, her festival, her podcast. She's got a lot of good stuff going on. So thank you again, and thank you for listening. See you next time.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Sass Says is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. This podcast is meant to be educational and not meant to replace professional therapy or professional medical attention. To learn more about today's show and what's new in my world, head over to sasssays.com. Thanks so much. Talk later.